Toyota was one of the first to popularize hybrids. They did so with the Prius, which was actually launched back in 1997. They seem to really believe in hybrids more so than EVs because they're currently the brand with the most number of hybrids here in the Philippines. And they're pretty late to the EV game, having only released their first EV this 2022. This right here is one of the latest hybrids here in the Philippines. This is the Corolla Cross Hybrid GRS. Unlike other GRS variants in the Philippines, Toyota didn't just slap on a body kit and a couple of badges to the regular Corolla Cross and call it a new variant. The headlights, the grille, actually the entire front fascia is different with a more aggressive and more rugged look. It's almost like a facelift. You get additional claddings on the side, you get blacked out wheels. At the back, you get these smoked LED taillights, and it gets a power liftgate, something that the regular Corolla Cross Hybrid doesn't have. The interior looks mostly the same, except for some GRS badging. Like the regular Corolla Cross Hybrid, the GRS also gets an 8-inch screen with Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and a reverse camera. It gets faux leather seats, dual zone climate control. It gets a foot brake instead of a handbrake. If you want to know more details about the exterior and the interior of the Corolla Cross Hybrid GRS, I've done a full walk around. The link is in the description below. This video is going to be more about my initial driving impressions.
Okay, so let's start the car. Now, as you can see, or as you could hear, there was no starter motor and you can't hear the engine.
The thing that may first surprise you when you first start the car is that you don't hear the usual starting sounds of a car. You don't hear a starter motor, you don't hear the engine. So you might think that the car is off even though it's already on. If you have enough battery power, the engine will remain off. And even when you put it in drive, it will stay off as long as you have enough battery power and as long as you drive at parking lot speeds. When you start driving the car on public roads, you'd realize that the engine won't stay off for very long. You can try to force it to turn off by pressing the EV button. But more likely than not, you won't be able to put it in pure EV mode at any given time. If the car detects that the battery level is too low, or if you're asking more power from the car than what is required for driving around the parking lot, the engine will stay on. The Corolla Cross Hybrid has a 1.3 kilowatt-hour battery. For comparison, the Nissan Kicks has a 2.13 kilowatt-hour battery. Most EVs have an 80 to 100 kilowatt-hour battery. And PHEVs, like the Tigo 8 Pro, have a battery capacity of 20 kilowatt hours. The battery capacity of the Corolla Cross Hybrid is quite low, so don't expect to travel long distances on pure battery power alone. You can realistically expect 3 to 4 kilometers of range at relatively low speeds before the engine turns on again. Once you get over the lack of starting sounds, it's really not that much different from driving a regular car. The engine is usually on. You do hear and feel the engine mostly, but it's overall a very quiet driving experience. Also, the transition from EV to ICE mode is almost seamless. You almost can't tell when the engine turns on and when it turns off. Supposedly, the Corolla Cross GRS has a slightly stiffer suspension than the regular Corolla Cross, but it still soaks up road imperfections really well. It's by no means a jarring ride. In terms of acceleration, you might expect it to be quick because of the electric motor, but it's not gonna blow your mind. It has a total of 120 horsepower, and that's the combined output of both the electric motor and the ICE engine. The engine actually turns on to assist the electric motor once you go over 40 kph, because the motor alone is quite anemic on its own and requires the assistance of the engine at highway speeds. For comparison, the Nissan Kicks has 138 horsepower and 280 Newton meters of torque. And all of that power is from the electric motor. So the driving experience is very different. The Kicks feels a lot more powerful, it feels a lot quicker, and it's closer to a pure EV driving experience. Whereas the Corolla Cross feels more like an ICE vehicle with an electric motor backup. The Corolla Cross Hybrid has Toyota's safety sense. It comes with adaptive cruise control, automatic braking, lane tracing assist, blind spot monitor, rear cross traffic alert. The adaptive cruise of the Corolla Cross Hybrid though is weird. When you come to a complete stop, you have to step on the brakes. If you don't, the adaptive cruise will turn off and the vehicle will start lurching forward. If you don't, the adaptive cruise will turn off and the vehicle will start lurching forward.
Did you activate siya? Okay.
Now, I don't know why it just wouldn't stay stopped like the Ford Territory or the Honda HR-V. I think at best it's annoying, and at worst it could be a potential safety risk for those who are new to the car. Still, it's better than not having adaptive cruise, and as long as you're aware that it turns off, it's not a safety issue. But it's less convenient to use than the adaptive cruise of other crossovers. If you're considering buying the Corolla Cross Hybrid, you're probably also considering the Nissan Kicks. They're both similar in that they have a battery, a motor, and a gasoline engine, but they're different in a lot of ways. They're both classified as hybrids, but the Kicks feels closer to an actual EV because the powertrain is electric. You get the instant torque that you get on most EVs. The Corolla Cross feels more like a regular vehicle that can turn its engine off from time to time. The Kicks does not have two redundant power plants. It only has one power plant in the form of an electric motor with a single-speed reduction gearbox. It doesn't have a transmission that can shift gears, which has a couple of advantages. One, it saves weight. Two, it reduces the number of moving parts in the car. And three, it reduces drivetrain power loss. So theoretically, the Kicks should be more efficient. I drove the Kicks for a week, and my best fuel consumption was 22.5 kpl in very heavy city traffic. The Corolla Cross Hybrid has two redundant power plants, meaning that both the engine and the motor can power the wheels independently. Both power plants go through a CVT transmission, so when you're accelerating hard, you will hear that recognizable CVT drone. By the way, the CVT is also an additional thing that you have to maintain in the future. Now, you might think that redundancy means better reliability because you have two power plants, and if one of them fails, you can use the other. However, I don't think you can do that. Most hybrids don't have a regular starter motor, so you still need the hybrid battery and the electric motor to start the gasoline engine. Both systems have to work for the car to be usable. So if one power plant fails, you can't rely on the other. They have to both work for you to be able to use the car. I didn't get to spend as much time with the Corolla Cross as I did with the Kicks. I got an average of 13 kpl on the Corolla Cross on this short test drive. But then again, this is a much shorter drive than the 1 week that I spent with the Kicks. So take that number with a grain of salt. Others seem to be getting 18 to 20 kpl in mixed driving conditions. So it depends on who's doing the measuring, but so far they're more or less the same when it comes to fuel consumption. The Kicks though delivers more power per liter of fuel, And that is the definition of efficiency. Technical stuff aside, the main advantage of the Kicks is its faster acceleration and its significantly lower price. The Corolla Cross Hybrid has more features, including adaptive cruise control and the power liftgate. It's also bigger and therefore has a more spacious cabin. They're both very fuel-efficient vehicles, although the Kicks will give you more miles per gallon. The Corolla Cross Hybrid GRS sells for 1,774,000 pesos. That's 94,000 pesos more than the regular Corolla Cross Hybrid. For that price, you get a power liftgate, you get the updated front end, and a couple of GRS badging. Now, usually I'm not into paying extra for cosmetic upgrades because I'd rather do the mods myself, but I think this looks different enough that it might be worth your consideration. At almost 1.8 million pesos, the Corolla Cross Hybrid is a bit on the expensive side. But for that price, you get a lot of perks. You get Toyota's safety sense, you get number coding exemption, and you get some money back in terms of fuel savings.